Welcome back, everyone. It is July 3rd. I'm putting a new video together today that'll come out here this weekend, but I wanted to let you know the video I'm putting together today I'll upload. It'll be July 3rd when it gets up there. It went a little long, so originally it was going to be one segment. I realized we got to about half an hour. I still had another 15 minutes of footage I wanted to include, so I'm going to break that up into two. So I'll put those two out there, and then after that will be the video I'm making today. It's June 22nd. We're out here to get some spraying done, but the first thing I need to do is replace a relay that's running the pump in the back of my side-by-side. So gotta get that done, make sure that's working, then we're gonna go get to spraying. Whew, that sneeze. All right, so after all that explaining, and I couldn't figure out what's going on, why is this not working, where's this switch even run to? Turns out the switch turns on, runs the power all the way back to the back by the battery, and that's where the relay's at. So once I got in there, found the relay, turns out it's a bigger style relay, but a couple taps on it, it's working fine. Now the reason I did that is because the battery on these is located right underneath the rear passenger seat here. So the reason I did that is because since the battery's right here, I might as well run the switch all the way back into here, turn the relay on right here, and then I have a very short run of wire to go from the battery, which is right there, back to that aux port, which is right there. So I actually ran the wire all the way to the back and then ran it up and into that aux port I showed earlier. The reason I did that is because the way this bed swivels, it swivels up like this behind that. So this way, running it back to there and then up, when I put the bed up to drop stuff out of the tilt bed, it'll stay in place. I won't break it. I don't have to put a whole bunch of extra slack or anything in it, and it just works better that way. We're coming in here. We're going to take a look at the soybeans we put in. Then we're going to spray them. We're going to spray them down with Roundup here, and these are Roundup ready beans. So coming in here, this is the area that I tilled, and then I went in with the no-till. I know it sounds funny, but and put rows in here. I spaced them every other. I've talked to some folks that also are planting these same beans that are saying they're running them every single row. I want to leave a little bigger gap. Hopefully, if these deer allow, they'll get a little taller that way. But I'm gonna come in here, spray now. My assumption is I'll probably have to come back one more time and spray them because of the wider spacing, and that way kill everything else off until they can canopy and protect themselves from any weed competition. But right now, let's go ahead and take a look, see how these things are doing. So it has been unseasonably warm and really dry these last 3 weeks since I put these things in. We have got a couple rains and actually got a good rain last night. You can see the soil here is still damp from that. It's about to be 90 degrees out today and sunny, so I'm sure all that moisture that got put in here yesterday is going to get sucked right back up. But does look like I'm seeing some rows here. Not as good as I'd like to see, but I'm hoping we're supposed to get another rain tomorrow. I don't think many of these soybeans sprouted and then withered away, so I think we're going to be okay. Spraying it here today should help, and then if we get a couple rains over the next week, I'm expecting when I come back here for the next trip back to update, it'll look a lot better. So let's go ahead and have a look here. So you can see we have some good growth here out of these ones. You can see they're popping up. We'll go ahead and look down the row here. So you can see there's definitely some spots where either the seeds got eaten or they just haven't sprouted up yet. So let's go see if we can find one where there's a seed laying there. That is a stone. Okay, so now we're getting to a spot where you can see there's pretty good germination, quite a few of them popping up here. If we look over here, same thing out of this row. So spacing is a little bit far out. Okay, you can see we got one popping up right here though. So I think we're going to be okay. I think we get this rain over the next couple days, and these things will start popping. And by the time we get another month or two into it, we're going to look really good. All right, so I'm going to pop the tripod over here. We'll get a little footage, and I'm going to go about spraying these things. So if you remember, I came through and did a little test here on this one. In fact, I'm not even sure I talked about it, but I came into my leftover winter rye that I had last year, and I put a couple passes down through here. So I didn't spray it, didn't mow it, didn't terminate it, didn't do anything, just went right through it. Basic idea being, if I could put in soybeans that way, put them in, let them pop up, you know, give them a couple weeks and then come back and spray, that's going to give me the best chance of keeping animals off the seeds and giving them a couple weeks to sprout up, grow a little bit when they still have that energy from the seed, and they can outcompete for a couple weeks the rest of the weeds, come in, spray it down. That way everything else dies out. And after they've used up all the nutrients from the seed pod that was there, then everything else will be killed off. They can start to get up, get enough sun, because everything else will be dead. And I figured that would be the easiest way to plant soybeans. So I'm not really seeing much here right now. I think there might be a couple. I'm not sure if they're being outcompeted or if I didn't get them drilled deep enough because I didn't till over here. But we will keep an eye on this over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to spray this today while I'm here, and we'll see if those soybeans start to pop. If they do, that's probably the only way I'm going to do this in the future. Come in, you know, plant the winter rye towards the end of September, come in and no-till that in, and then the next year, come back, drill through that, and then terminate that, and we'll just keep that rotation going for a couple years till we use up the nitrogen, and then we'll put clover back in. So this is a pretty typical spot right here. I am seeing a couple soybean plants pop up. I probably need to actually take a real good close look because it's kind of tough to see them. Actually, I'm seeing some more now. But with that clover being down there underneath, it makes it tough to spot them. But I will show you a couple here that are popping through. So you can see here, we got one popping up. We got another one here. See, up, we got a little one right here. It's popping up. So we might be in better shape than I had thought originally. Yep, so here's another one. This just might work. Let's hope. Now, while I'm walking back to the side-by-side, I want to introduce this topic. So one of my pet peeves is you go on to, I'm on some Facebook groups, some Reddit groups as well. And one of the things you hear get asked over and over again by new folks, oh, a bone, another one, something got taken out here. But one of the things that one of the questions I see, especially new folks ask, is how many ounces per gallon of herbicide are you putting in your sprayer? And it's just, once you understand all the factors that you have to calculate in order to get a good, proper spraying and know how many ounces or how many quarts per acre, that's the important thing. It's quarts per acre. If you read any label, they all say quarts per acre. They don't say, now if you're spot treating, that's different, right? You have a little backpack sprayer, you know, you're spraying little spots. You can do ounces per gallon there. But if you're trying to spray a whole field, you can't do that. And the reason is you have to have, like I said, quarts per acre. So some of the things that go into that, right? If I have, let's just say this here, this is about 65 gallons worth of water. Yep. Had to check it. It is about 65 gallons of water, of fluid, I should say. So if I have a known volume here, my pump puts out a volumetric rate, I might get, let's say, 20 minutes of spraying before that thing's empty. If I drive at 5 miles an hour or 10 miles an hour, I put that same amount of chemical that I'd mixed in there over maybe an acre or 2 acres. Well, if I'm driving twice as fast, spraying at the same rate, and doing twice as much acreage, well, I can't tell you how many ounces per gallon to put in there, because if I do that and I drive too fast, I'm not putting down enough of the chemical I want to put in. So how fast you're driving, how wide is your sprayer? Those two things go into it. Another thing that goes into it is, are you overlapping? So if you overlap, you really need to make sure that you're either doing no overlap at all, and that's tough to do, because then you have to, you know, your one spray ends here and your next one has to start there. That gets difficult. What I usually try to shoot for is a half overspray. So each time I go through, the first time I'll spray an area, the next time I come back, it overlaps by about half of it. And then when I go back this way, same thing. And what you're effectively doing there is every line is getting sprayed twice. But by doing that, you're not getting, you know, sprayed real heavy in one spot, not sprayed very hard in another. All right, so my arm's getting a little tired holding that thing, so I decided to set it on the tripod and talk to you this way. So yeah, if you're doing an overlap, make sure you either don't do an overlap, try your best to make sure right where one line ends and you come back the other way, that one starts, so you're not overlapping. If you get just a little bit of an overlap, you're going to have areas of kind of normal concentration, and then you're going to have little spots where your overlap of heavy concentration. So you won't get a good kill that way. You'll get some areas that get killed really well, other areas where maybe you don't get as good of a kill. Or you kill the area that's sprayed normally, properly, and you're fine there, but the areas of overlap, you're spraying way too heavy and you're wasting chemical. So either don't overlap it, or do like what I do, is a half overlap. So I come down and I spray, let's say it's about 8 feet. The next time I go back, I do 4 feet into new area, 4 feet over the last one. Come back, now that area that was 4 feet that has only been sprayed once, when I come back, I'll hit that 4 feet. So effectively everything's being sprayed twice as I'm going down. And when I do that, I up my speed. So I did all my calculations, and I have a website. I'm also a computer, well, I'm a mechanical engineer, but I do a bunch of software, create web pages. So I'm going to take that web page, I'm going to build out a calculator for you, and I'll link that down below. If I don't have that ready by this video, I will get it done within the next month, and I'll put that out there to help you. But what I try to do is drive a little faster, and that way I can spray overlap like that, and I get a good clean kill. I get consistency. I'm not completely perfect. I don't think it's possible to be completely perfect unless you have some sort of crazy GPS system. But I'm very consistent. You know, you might get a few spots here or there where you missed. But if you do that overlap, it's really rare that you miss a big area. Okay, so we said how wide is your sprayer, how fast are you driving, the other things that come into it, how big is your tank. So you, obviously that you know how big it is. If you have a larger tank like I do now, you can spray for longer. You need to make sure you get more chemical in there. And then the last one is your pump rate. So how fast are you pumping out that fluid? And it's not enough to look at the pump and say, oh, it's this many gallons per minute, because that's its hypothetical. When you start to push it through the restriction that are these little tips on the end here, that comes into play. So you need to factor that in. So the way I do it is I take and I put a bucket underneath it. I run it for 1 minute. I measure how many gallons I've gotten out of the tips, and then I know how many gallons per minute that I'm putting out. So that's the other factor you have to know. Now, that's about it. Once you know those things, you know your overlap, you know how fast you'll be driving, you know how wide your spray pattern is, and you know how fast your pump is pumping, or how much volume per minute, so your volumetric flow rate. Once you have all those, you're able to calculate it out, and you can get a very good, precise amount of how much of your chemical you need to put in there compared to how much of the water you put in there. So the last thing you might need to think about is how much total fluid you're putting down. So let's say I have a flow rate that's real low, right? It's a small little pump, and I'm going to drive really, really fast. Well, what's going to happen is that fluid's going to come out, and you're not going to have enough of it, right? So even though, let's say you get enough of the, your concentration is correct, well, there's just not enough fluid to hit every blade of grass that's down there and kill it off. So, you know, there's some industry standards. I'll try to find something to link on that. But for the most part, anything I've ever done, I've never found that I'm not getting enough total fluid down to coat the ground and kill everything off. But just a consideration, if you're running a bigger system. Now, if you're running a bigger boom system, you probably already know all this stuff, but just something to watch out for. I think the other place I'd tell you to watch out for this is if, let's say you go to Tractor Supply, you buy a system that's made to just do little small areas, and you try to do a couple acres with it. They don't have a very high flow rate. And what you might end up finding is you kill off this tall stuff really well. You kill off the tall weeds, but you end up with a bunch of stuff down here that's still alive. And that just means that you're misting it. You're getting fluid on all the tall stuff, but it's absorbing it all, and it's not getting down low to hit the lower, small growing stuff down near the ground. There are some ways to mitigate that. What you would want there is a bigger droplet size. Now, with a system like this, I can change the tips out. I can get bigger droplets. I can change the spray angle to be wider, narrower. But most of the ones I've seen that are cheaper, they'll just have the little twist ones that are circular. You twist it, it'll open it up, close it down, and that's the only adjustment you have. So just know if you're spraying and you're seeing I'm getting a decent kill, but I always seem to have to go back a second time to spray to get all the little stuff down by the ground, it probably just means you need to either slow down, put more fluid in, put less of your concentrate in, of less of your chemical in, so that your concentration is lower in general, but then slow down to get that same amount of product on the ground. But you'll get more water with it. It'll get down lower into all that understory, I guess maybe that's not the right word, but into the thick growth down underneath all your grasses and kill everything off. So what I'm spraying today, just plain old Roundup, actually 41% glyphosate, so it's not even the brand name. But we're running that with some 80-20 Surfactant. We're going to be spraying about 3 quarts per acre here. Like I said, I can do about 20 minutes. I'm running about 10 miles per hour is my target, and that will let me do in the neighborhood of 2.5 acres, and that's about what I have to do here today. So we're going to be spraying that. Got a little bit of just plain old Dawn dish detergent to take off the oils on the broadleafs, and if there's any of those waxy type, helps take that off a little bit, make sure that Roundup gets down to it. It is pretty warm today. This stuff will evaporate fairly quickly, but I've never had trouble with it in the past. I don't think we'll have any issues here. So it's leaking right now. I'm going to get busy, and you stay tuned. We'll get some work done. So we got the main part done here by the shooting house. I have another one over here by the redneck. We're going to go do that next. That one's about an acre and a half. It's probably about an acre and a half once you factor in the strip there that I put in. Just wanted to do another quick tip here. So bought this from Tractor Supply, 65 gallon. This seems to be about the perfect size. Pretty heavy in the back of the side-by-side, just pretty heavy on the trailer, but still nothing compared to, my tractor. So this seems to be just about the right size, so I can maximize the amount of spraying compared to filling. I do have a small Honda clean water pump. So I used to have a trash pump. That thing, I left it in the shed, didn't realize it was going to be freezing that night, and it ended up cracking. So that one's on me. But honestly, that one was so big, it filled this thing real quick. I mean, less than a minute, I'd say. But the problem was it was so powerful, it's tough to control it through a flexible hose to get it, the roll-up style hose to get it into the tank. So this new little Honda one, it's perfect for what I have. I have a nice deep creek over there that I can pull water from. So I just want to show the quick tip. So what I did is what threading this came with, I converted it down to garden hose thread. And the reason for that is just how ubiquitous garden hose is, makes it super easy to find fittings. So what this is here, just a nice garden hose, brass shutoff valve, heavy duty. I've used one on my pressure washer for a long time, but it works really well. And then when you're done spraying, you're going to the next spot. You just shut that off, and you can see it creates a vacuum on that side, and you don't get any leakage. So it used to be that I didn't have that on there, and what would happen is you'd shut the pump off with the switch, the electrical should just shut the pump down, and then it would just keep leaking and leaking and leaking while you're going to the next spot, and you get little spots that you've killed along the way, and you'd waste your chemical as well. So add that in there. And then I added a filter. So when I fill it up from home, obviously that's not a problem at all, but sometimes I have to run a second spraying and pull it from that creek I was telling you about. Then it's nice to have that filter on there. It's a quick clean out, just a mesh screen style, but it's got a lot of surface area. So if you get a little bit of debris in there, it'll catch it and it won't affect your performance. But it does make it nice. You're not sending that stuff through the pump. And these pumps are expensive anymore, so try to protect them the best I can. I have this one mounted on these joist hangers. I think they're called joist hanger bolts, but it's basically a screw and a bolt combined into one. So you screw the wood, or you screw down into the wood with the screw side, and then you'll have your threaded side here for your bolts. So I just set this down on. It's got the rubber isolators. Put your bolt, or put your nut on there. You can use a wing nut if it'll fit. This one it couldn't fit. I don't know if you see there. Didn't have enough room, but every time I'm done with this, come October, I pull this thing off there, take it in, leave it inside in my basement so it stays. So I also take it and tip it both ways. So leave it one way for a day, flip it the other way, get every bit of fluid out of there that you can, and then store it inside, and you'll get years of use out of it. So yeah, they're really easy to break. You leave these things outside, if you have fluid in it, it's gonna crack. If you keep fluid in it, I think they're supposed to be mostly plastic inside, but they always seem to degrade if you leave any fluid in there. So try to get it all out. I guess since it's a day of tips, I'll give you one more. So I have my redneck blind here. The redneck blinds come with a key to open them up, lock them and unlock them. I'm not the only one that hunts in here. My dad actually, well, not out of this one, but out of the tall blind over there, he shot his buck out of it last year. But I do let other folks hunt out of here, and I don't want to give everyone a key. I don't want to worry about losing it. I don't want to get up here and realize I brought the wrong set of car keys that doesn't have the key I need for the blind. So bought one of these. I'm sure you've seen them before. If you ever go check out a house, a lot of the real estate agents, they'll use these things so they can keep the key right there and make it easy for other realtors to go in and take a look at it. So if we flip this down, I put my code in, I can get the key out of there, unlock it, put it back. Next person comes along, they can do the same. And then what this is, I just 3D printed a little hood for it so that in the winter, don't get a bunch of snow down in there, don't get rain gets in there and freezes. And then we won't be able to use it, get out here to go hunting and realize, oh, I can't. So put that over top of it, put a little spray foam in there to try to keep any water from getting down in there. Checked it out last winter when I was hunting, and it worked perfectly. So just a little idea. If you have an area you can put one of these to, I'd highly recommend it. So if you would have asked me 5 years ago if I'd ever own a redneck blind, I'd just flat out say no. They're pretty expensive. Seems like all the cool guys that are out there hunting are using these, and that sort of thing tends to turn me off to a product. But got in a pinch last year, getting down to the wire. I still had a bunch of planning I needed to do, and I realized, like, hey, if I'm going to build something, it's going to end up taking me, if I go every weekend and work on it, it's going to take me a month, and I just didn't have it. So I figured, well, let's go take a look at one of these rednecks, see if they're as good as everybody claims. And so far I can say they pretty much are. I've had one or two windows where they leak a little bit, tighten them up, try to get them to not leak. I think if I get the overhang that comes with it, might even try to 3D print one of those. but I think that'll fix that issue. Yeah, so my first one that I bought was up on the market property. That's actually where my daughter shot her first buck out of last year, so that was pretty cool. It works really well for that. They hold the sound. They seem to hold the sound in pretty well. Very comfortable. I got the 6x7, the big country, and the size in here. I've had myself and my two daughters with me with plenty of room, lots of extra room for them to eat snacks. But yeah, they seem to work well. They'll do exactly what I need them to do. They are a little bit on the expensive side, but I do hope it's kind of a buy once, cry once sort of thing, and they'll be here for myself, and when I'm gone, my daughters and their family will still be using it. So I think it's a good investment if you're looking to have something. I put this one on a trailer. Haven't moved it yet, but it does make it really, really nice and easy that if I want to take this one, move it down to the end of the field down there, which I might just do, can do that really easily. So they seem to have a pretty good thing going here. I am not sponsored by them at all, though. Hey, if you're out there, redneck, and you really want to, I know I'm a small channel, but yeah. So yeah, if you're looking for a blind, don't want to build it, I will say I have built 3 blinds and bought 2 of these. There's pros and cons to both, but if you're out there looking for a blind and shopping around, take a look at one of these, see if you like it or not, see if you think it's worth the money. So this is pretty interesting. Got up in here. This area down here is really overgrown. Last year I actually just came through at some leftover turnips and some leftover daikon radishes, and I just came down through here with the drill and drilled it and then sprayed it, and it worked out really well. I had a bunch of deer in here feeding all the time, and so I put this camera on it. And hold on, I gotta turn this off so we don't waste a bunch of our chemical here, but looks like this tree decided it doesn't particularly care for my camera being on there, so we gotta clean this up. All right, so we got that all cleaned up. Probably pull the last couple off of the solar panel here, and we'll get out of here. So just finished up. Everything went pretty much according to plan. I had 65 gallons there of chemical to put down. I expected to be able to spray everything that I sprayed and have a little bit left. That's what happened. So I went around and show you here on this thicker stuff over here. I made a few passes. What I've noticed in the past is if I drive real fast, about 15 miles per hour, and I just cut through that, it won't kill the clover off, but it'll hit all the weeds sticking up high. So I want to give that another try, see if that works. So I'll have that update on an upcoming episode, and then we'll also come back, take a look, see how the spray did here, see how the soybeans are coming up. So what we have left today, we have the market property. I'm going to go refill up with chemical, recharge my batteries, and we'll get a little footage up there, and that'll be the end of this episode. So stay tuned for that. We'll have a little more.